Well, that was a little surprising. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and we're definitely doing something very different today. I am not going to say that I'm going to be wading into politics that much. Frankly, the subject kind of makes me a little uneasy sometimes because of how extreme people have on their opinions of, just everything. But I just feel like I want to talk about this one. And, I was also a little inspired by my discussion with Mark when he said that he enjoyed a particular video of mine because it was something that I really didn't do that often. And so I'm going to just talk about it for a few minutes. And, whether you agree with me or not, that's fine. I'm going to try to take a very nuanced look at this Supreme Court ruling on the Biden vaccine. Now, I have made my views on the vaccine very clear. I think you should get your damn shot. I don't even think this is very much up for debate. I don't want to hear your stats about, it's a 99% survival rate or something like that. No. The stats very clearly are on the side that you are much more likely to survive and not have as many side effects if you are vaccinated. People who are unvaccinated are flooding the hospitals. Like, this very mild case of COVID is straining the healthcare system. And yeah, maybe they're surviving on a more global scale now, but those people who are surviving, they are having some very miserable side effects. Very miserable side effects. And even Donald Trump, your Lord and Savior Donald Trump, realizes that this is not a winning game. Like, the vaccines work, they're safe, and, vaccines have always worked, and they've always been safe. I mean, and it just bugs me that we're at the point now where people hate this one so much, for whatever reason. For whatever reason, they hate this one so much that they even want to go back and they want to, say, hey, I don't think that kids should be vaccinated for the measles or polio, and things are starting to make a comeback. So that is my opinion of the vaccines. And as a result of that opinion, I will admit I was a little disappointed by SCOTUS' ruling on this. But I'm also a rational thinking person. And the more I thought about it, and the more I really read about how the ruling came down, I don't think this is the worst decision SCOTUS has ever made. And in fact, it's probably the best one they could have under the circumstances. Even if I still think they shouldn't have struck this down, but in some ways I think it's best that they did. So let me explain why. So here's what happened, in case you don't know. The Supreme Court on Tuesday blocked the Biden administration from enforcing a requirement that employees at large businesses be vaccinated against COVID-19 or undergo weekly testing and wear a mask on the job. At the same time, the court is allowing the administration to proceed with a vaccine mandate for most healthcare workers in the U.S. The court's conservative majority concluded the administration overstepped its authority by seeking to impose the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which is OSHA, vaccine or test rule on U.S. businesses with at least 100 employees. More than 80 million people would have been affected. Quote, OSHA has never before imposed such a mandate, nor has Congress. Indeed, though Congress has enacted significant legislation addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, it has declined to enact any measure similar to what OSHA has promulgated here, the conservatives wrote an unsigned opinion. In dissent, the court's three liberals argued that it was the court that was overreaching by substituting its judgment for that of health experts. Acting outside of its competence and without legal basis, the court displaces the judgments of the government officials given the responsibility to respond to workplace health emergencies, Justices Stephen Breyer, Alina Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor wrote in a joint dissent. Now, that's basically, that's dissent, and that's the four, the drill. So, anyway, on one hand, I'm a little surprised about this because, the Supreme Court has historically always allowed vaccine mandates. They've always allowed vaccine mandates. They have ruled twice, in fact, that, schools and government can impose mandatory vaccines unless the people have medical conditions where the vaccine would be harmful to that individual, and those do exist. They're not very common, but they do exist. So I thought they were going to go with this one, but they didn't. And the biggest sticking point seemed to be that basically they just didn't like how this went through. They didn't like that Biden went over Congress. They didn't like how they went over the Senate. They didn't like that the government was, doing mandates on private businesses that it really had never mandated things before. So that seemed to be their big issues. But the fact that they let the healthcare worker mandate stand is definitely consistent with what the Supreme Court has ruled with in the past about vaccine mandates coming from the government. So basically, the message, at least the way I'm interpreting it, is this. The government can definitely mandate vaccines. The government can mandate vaccines. So anyone who is hoping to, use the Supreme Court to get out of a vaccine mandate for the army or something like that, you're probably going to lose that one. And they're also saying that if the government wants to impose this mandate or similar mandates without first going through the Congress or the House or the Senate, then it's not going to stand, because you need to go through the proper channels. You need to write that legislation. You need to do that. The government can't just tell businesses what they can and can't do. And I think that's actually really positive for a couple of reasons. First of all, it is true that even though we are in a pandemic and even though we really should be doing this, it is true that if you let a mandate slide for an emergency power stay, then that does set a precedent, and that precedent can be used against businesses in situations that might not be as emergency requiring. Let's put it that way. Like, that's not an emergency. Basically, there's not a time-sensitive issue. It's not urgent, but the government just wants to get its way, and the president will executive order it. And I'm frustrated that this is the one that they decided to put their foot down on. Because I've seen many executive orders get signed. You don't use an executive order to get your wall built. You don't use an executive order to let illegal immigrants have temporary citizenship status. These are not things that you should be using your executive order on. And, when I think of it pragmatically, maybe you shouldn't be doing it for businesses as well. They are private. And if they want to do something foolish, as long as they're not, hurting anyone, and as long as the employees know what they're doing, that they probably shouldn't step in. Now, if what the company's doing is illegal, that's something else. But, we're definitely at a point in the pandemic where if you want to get the vaccine, you're going to get the vaccine. If you don't want to get the vaccine, you're not going to get the vaccine, and, hopefully the consequences are not as severe as, hopefully they're less severe as you are claiming they're going to be. I think you're going to be in for a miserable time. I unfortunately know way too many people who got this thing. I've amazingly not gotten it myself. All the people who were vaxxed, they had a much less miserable time than the people who weren't vaxxed, who had a very miserable time if they survived at all. And unfortunately, a lot of my friends and some family members did not survive because of this stupid belief. But here's how it works the other way around. You see, there's currently a couple rogue states, primarily Texas and Florida, whose actually the government has mandated that you cannot tell your employees to wear masks. You cannot mandate the vaccine. You cannot mandate anything. And this ruling might actually give those businesses some pushback. Because the Supreme Court has said is that basically the government cannot mandate that a private business enforce a vaccine mandate. But by that same token, the government probably can't mandate that a business says, hey, you know what? We want our employees to be vaccinated for the safety of our fellow employees and for the guests or customers or whatever. We are requiring vaccinations to work here. And with the Supreme Court ruling, these companies who are not easy with the idea of Florida basically putting their boot on their throat and saying, you will not require vaccinations, you will put people in unnecessary danger, or you will be fined, they can now say, hey, the Supreme Court says that the government can't mandate these things. And now maybe Ron DeSantis and Abbott, is his name Greg Abbott? I forgot. Maybe they're going to get a little bit of a wake-up call. Maybe they will get a little bit of a wake-up call at this point. I certainly think they deserve to have a wake-up call. I absolutely think they should. So, in a strange way, even though I'm not completely happy with it, the more I thought about it, the more I understood. I mean, I'm not one of those give me liberty or give me death type of people. I mean, you don't need to be that extreme, especially not over a shot, especially not over a mask. I mean, it just does not make sense. Like if this is the biggest thing that you have to worry about in your life, then count your blessings. You have no conflicts in your life. Most people are worried about getting houses. They're worried about their marriages falling apart. They're wondering where they're going to get childcare. They're trying to get jobs with their pay, jobs that are just not there. There are people who are not educated, who will never get out of the trailer park. And these are their big concerns in life. And if your biggest concern in life is whether or not you have to get a shot or get a mask, then, you know, I'm sorry. You have got to be the most privileged person in the world, because these are not big deals. They really aren't. But now the Supreme Court basically has your back, in a sense, in saying, like, hey, look, if you want to be foolish, be foolish. Government can't mandate a private business to do this. I'm also gonna go on a limb here, and again, I'm gonna think that this also means that the government does not have the right to say what you can't do in this situation either. So if Disney World comes back and says, hey, guess what? We're reinstating the vaccine mandate, and I sense they really want to do that. What's Governor Abbott going... Not Governor Abbott, that's Texas. DeSantis. What's DeSantis going to do? DeSantis will probably be challenged, and then DeSantis will lose, because the Supreme Court has set the precedent now that the government cannot put their authoritarian rules on these businesses. Now, the only thing that might change that a little bit is if these rules that Abbott and DeSantis has made, if they went through their little Congress area, you know, if they went through the lawmakers and stuff, then maybe that's a little different. But the last I checked, I think these were executive orders. I think these were executive orders, and the President of the United States executive order was just struck down, so I don't think they're going to have their stand much longer. I don't know. It's just... So it's a very interesting situation. And basically what's most fascinating about this ruling is that nobody is completely happy. Nobody is completely happy. The anti-vaxxers don't like this decision because even though the private businesses were basically excused, the healthcare workers, they're not excused. And most likely other government agencies are not excused either. They still have to get shots. So if you work for the government and you don't want to get vaxxed, well, you might want to pick up some change of address forms on the way out. And the people who felt that, you know, we really have to bring this pandemic under control. We got to stop being babies about this. Just tell everyone to grow up and get their shots. You know, we can't just do that anymore. But at the same time, well, maybe going forward, the government would have required the businesses to do something that, you know, wasn't necessarily in the public's best interest or for health purposes. That maybe this is going to be a future proof. So maybe this was the only way it could have really gone. And I'm not too terribly worried about that. So anyway, that's as much of a nuanced take as I can get. I can guarantee you there are going to be comments below where there is a whole lot of stupid and a whole lot of passion. I probably will not be responding to those comments. I'm going to be honest. It's not that I'm afraid. It's just I've got better things to do than respond to those comments. So, you know, make them if you want. I definitely appreciate it when you leave comments, and, you know, I'm sure you'll find someone down there willing to debate you. But I think, you know, the anti-vaxxers aren't happy. The pro-vaxxers aren't happy. I guess this is what a compromise looks like, and that's probably the best we can do. So anyway, that's it for this video. And again, I don't think I'm going to be talking politics very much. You know, politics is just a very stressful game on YouTube, despite the views it gets. I just had a lot to say about it, and I said, yeah, what the heck. It's not like my channel can die any faster than it already has. Just say your piece, get it out over with, and then go back to writing your reviews. Because, you know, I'm doing more blogging these days anyway. So yeah, we're going to leave it at that. Like to know, I mean, well, again, I probably won't be reading the comments, but, you know, if you feel like you want to say something, if it'll make you feel better to say something, comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, claim responsibly. Have a good one.